You still so sure you want to press that magic button?
I'm really committed in my life to doing better, to improving the well-being of myself and the people around me.
I'm really committed in my life to improving my well-being and those around me. Wow, I think that is wrong on so many fronts. First of all, as manliness goes, I'm actually like a jiu-jitsu champion and I kick the shit out of people all the time. So I'm actually pretty ripped and pretty manly myself.
Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Barovsky, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new team therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
David. Hello, Rhonda.
Hello, David.
We're going to move really fast today.
Wait. I have to let people know that this is the Feeling Good podcast, and this is episode 404. This is the conclusion to the personal work that you started last week.
Yeah, and this is some of the best work we've ever done, and it's a tremendous privilege to allow. We're honored to be able to publish such a fantastic podcast indicating team personal work. And at the end, stay tuned, because we brought Chris back to give us a report of what's happened to him in the past year. And I think his report and his thinking, his reflections will blow your mind. One last quick announcement. This is July 8th, I believe, and it's just exactly 1 month to go to the summer intensive, which will be August 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. That's Thursday through Sunday at the South San Francisco Conference Center. And it's always been, the summer intensive has always been my, by far, greatest teaching experience. It's magical, it's emotional. It will transform your clinical work. You'll learn how to do what we did with Chris. It will transform your life as well, because you'll be able to do personal work on your own demons during the workshop. To find out more, go to CBT Intensive. Is that right?
Yes, CBT Intensive.
.com, and you'll get the registration information and all the details. So enjoy the podcast today. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you in a month in South San Francisco, 10 minutes from the airport.
Nice.
I'm just wondering if we should just dive in.
To do positive reframing, is that?
Yeah. Chris, before you press that magic button, why don't we just step back a moment and take a look at what some of these positive distortions in women and negative distortions about yourself and all these intense negative feelings that you have when you're rejected, and your thoughts, what they say about you that's really kind of positive and awesome. And we can ask 3 questions in generating our list of positives. The first question is, why are these negative thoughts and feelings kind of appropriate and understandable when you're rejected, getting upset and mad at yourself and idealizing the woman and all of that. Number 2, what are some benefits to you in having these kinds of negative thoughts and feelings? And number 3, what do these negative thoughts and feelings show about you and your core values as a human being and as a man? What do they show about you that's positive and awesome? Would that be a good place for us to start, Chris?
That would be a great place.
Well, let's look at your daily mood log. We could start with any of your negative thoughts or any of your negative feelings and start working on that one first, because you've got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 really strong negative feelings plus a ninth, which is minimal anger. And then you've got at least 6 negative thoughts on your daily mood log and at least 5 or 6 more that you shared with us verbally. So let's just start on one of them. So let's look at your daily mood log, Chris, and choose a negative thought or a feeling to get us going. I mean, we could start right at the top with sad, down, unhappy, and depressed. 60.
Tricky. So, I mean, I guess it shows.
What does the sadness show about you that's awesome?
Does it? I mean, it shows that it's important to me.
Put that down. It shows that love relations are important to me. Is that true?
Yes.
Is that important?
It is important.
Is that powerful?
I think it is.
Yeah. So right away we might think twice about pressing the magic button and making that disappear. Do you see what I mean?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So this is a good start. Let's try worried, panicky, frightened, anxious. That's let's see if I can see. That's 98. Mm-hmm. What are some positives in that? If you press the magic button, it'll go away. It'll be like my buddy, supremely confident, never anxious around women.
Well, it keeps me from being reckless and embarrassing myself.
Well, that's never happened to you, has it?
No, not at all.
Put that down. That sounds important. Record, so. Yeah. Prevents me from being... Yeah, that's fabulous. Embarrassing myself. I love that. How about remorseful, ashamed, and guilty? That's 70%.
Yeah, I would say that. It shows I'm aware of the impact I can have on others, and I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to.
Yeah, and also you mentioned you I think you're feeling ashamed that you've let your father down, right?
Right. Yep.
What does that show about you that's awesome?
That I love my father.
Is that important?
It is.
So add that to the list. I think you see where we're going with this. Inadequate. What give me some benefits of feeling 90% inferior, inadequate, and incompetent.
Well, it shows that I'm willing to accept, reality, that things didn't go well, right? That they didn't turn out.
Is that important?
They did. That is important.
Yeah, put that down. What else does the inadequacy? Because there is inadequacy, as Jill just so beautifully pointed out. You're still about 14.
Right.
I'm going to be 81 in a month or two, and I sometimes feel like I'm 15. And I screw up all the time. What else does your feeling of inadequacy show about you that's pretty fantastic?
It shows that I recognize I have room to grow.
Oh, okay, but that's a good one. Is that important?
That is.
What else does it show? Because it's something that makes me feel, very admiring of you. I'll tell you if it doesn't jump out at you.
Nothing's jumping out right now.
Well, to me, it shows that you have tremendous humility. Is that an important quality?
It is, yes.
Yeah. Take a look at the mood log and pick another emotion. See if you can tell us what's positive about it or one of your negative thoughts.
It shows I have high standards for myself, that I want things to go really well.
Oh, yeah. Put that down. Yeah, that's... Yeah, And what feeling or thought conveys the high standards?
Well, I was thinking of put a bullet in my head. I don't want to be alive if I'm only going to be rejected. But in my head, it's an extreme thought. But
Say that again. I didn't quite get what you said.
The thought was, put a bullet in my head. I don't want to be alive if I'm only going to be rejected. I don't know
yeah.
why I'm laughing, but it's an extreme thought.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it shows high standards. Yeah, if a woman rejects me, I'll kill myself.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think it's so funny because it's true, like what it shows about you, but like it's so funny because it's so extreme. It's like, do I really need that thought in order to, hold that value dear, right? So I kind of love that you're laughing about it.
Yeah. That's neat. Yes, you have a beautiful sense of humor too. Another one of your great qualities. Let's see. What's another positive thing about yourself that these negative thoughts and feelings show?
Well, I mean, I said that it shows that love is important to me.
Yeah.
And that really captures a lot of the positive distortions as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Which is what I was looking at. I'm trying to think, like the thought that she's only attracted to successful men with lots of money. I mean, that shows that it's hard for me to figure out a positive for that one, other than it could be if it was true, then, there could be a sense of accepting reality there.
Yeah, and also knowing what kind of woman I'm looking for.
Knowing the kind of woman
Right. It's sort of those two things are both like about that I'm sort of like honest and that I'm living in reality. And, right. Like either I'm being honest about what it is that she wants, if it were true, like you said, or being honest about my current situation, that I'm not a good fit for someone like that. Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting though, if you kind of do acknowledge that some of these thoughts show that you really do value love and a relationship, even though there's part of you that's saying, I don't really want or need a relationship. Kind of understandably, there's part of you that's also saying being in a relationship is important to me, right? When you say it's the end of the world if she isn't attracted to me, there's part of you that's saying I really do want like love and connection, right? That I do value that.
We could add to this list. We could spend 30 minutes on it, but I want to move us along. But you pointed out some really beautiful things about yourself that these negative thoughts show about you, even the most intensely negative, angry thoughts. And if you press that button, all these positive qualities are going to disappear. That right along with your negative thoughts and feelings, and it doesn't make any sense why you'd want to do that, because this shows that love is important to you, that you're honest and realistic about people, that you have high standards, that you're humble, that you recognize you have room to grow, that you accept reality, that you really love your father. I've never seen a more beautiful demonstration of love. I forgot to ask you, and I was meaning to, have you ever shared those feelings with your father, what you shared with us?
I have shared with him that I love him at times. And it's been good when I do that. I haven't shared the content of any of the stuff that I've shared here, and I probably won't. But, I've had some moments recently. I gave a talk at his 75th birthday last summer. We flew out to Iowa, and I gave a talk, and he liked it so much. He requested a copy of the speech. I had some notes, and he shared it at his AA meeting, and he told me a bunch of the women there cried. Actually, they were really touched.
Oh, how neat! I know if I was your dad, I'd be really proud of you too.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, but anyway, you still so sure you want to press that magic button?
I am not so sure, actually. I really like the recognition that I have room to grow and that I value love and connection. I wouldn't want to get rid of those.
Yeah. Well, maybe we could just dial some of these negative feelings and thoughts down a little bit rather than trying to make them disappear completely. Suppose we could do that. How sad would you want to feel when you're rejected? Now, I think the estimate here was 65% you were feeling. What would be a appropriate amount of sadness?
I think a 5.
A 5. Was that enough?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, put a 5 in the gold column if you have it there.
Yeah.
And then how worried and anxious would you want to be? What's an appropriate amount? That was 98, especially, when you're starting out. What would be a reasonable amount of anxiety?
A 7.
A 7. Oh, you're going big time on the anxiety.
Yeah.
2 points higher than the depression. Okay, put a 7 there. How about how remorseful and guilty do you want to feel?
0, he said.
Oh, 0. Oh, yeah, great. Okay,
did I hear you right or no?
I think I said, I was trying to, yeah.
I'm sorry.
It came out as a 0, but like a 2.
A 2, yeah, because I couldn't believe the 0. I was thinking 2 myself. But how inadequate do you want to feel? That was 90, and inferior and incompetent. What's a good level of inadequacy?
I don't think I want any. We'll say a 1.
A 1, okay, a big investment there.
Yeah.
How lonely and unloved and rejected do you want to feel when you're rejected?
Also a 1.
A 1, okay. How embarrassed and humiliated and self-conscious do you want to feel?
A 2.
2, okay. How hopeless?
0.
0. How defeated?
0.
When you're rejected, you want to feel 0 defeated, right?
Right.
Okay, perfect. How angry, resentful, annoyed, furious?
0.
0, okay. So I'm ready to go for the gold here, if Jill is, and if you are.
I'm ready.
You ready, Jill?
I am ready.
So take your daily mood log and select any of the, so we can all have a starting place, any of those 6 or any of the others, actually, that you'd like to work on first.
Hard to choose. I think for me, it's number 5. I'm not man enough to attract a woman.
That's number. Okay, great. Yes. Now, let's just do is for humble beginning. You can see the distortions right below that thought at the bottom of the daily mood log on page 2. What distortions do you see in that thought?
Well, magnification and minimization.
Yes, and that's beautiful. Tell us kind of what you mean by that, because that's teach us why that's magnification and minimization.
I mean, when I say man enough, it's like the qualities that I think are attractive to a woman in my case, and I think with that thought, I'm really minimizing a lot of my positive qualities and not recognizing them, and maybe magnifying, the impact of the rejection.
Mm-hmm. Right? What are some of your positive qualities?
I mean, I'm really committed in my life to doing better, to improving the well-being of myself and the people around me, and I work really hard in my life to do that.
Can you put that in the right-hand column, the positive thought column? I'm committed to my life and the people around me.
I'm really committed in my life to improving my well-being and those around me.
How much do you believe that statement between 0 and 100?
How much do I believe that my commitment? I mean, I want to say 100.
100?
Yeah, 100.
100. Okay, great. Does that reduce your belief in I'm not man enough to attract a woman?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what it's at right now.
It was 80.
It's like a 10.
Okay, awesome. So that went down really, really fast. And just from a teaching point, it's a lot harder to get people to lower their belief. And we only did one distortion. But because it went so fast, can we bump it up to externalization of voices right now, Chris?
Yeah, let's go.
What's your name?
I'm Positive Chris.
Yeah, and what's my name?
You're Negative Chris.
And what's Jill's name?
Negative Chris.
Okay, right. And so we're going to see if we can attack you here and see if you can fight back. Would you like to start it, Jill, or would you prefer that I start it?
Either way, doesn't matter to me.
Go. I've been babbling a bit here, but why don't you start us off?
Okay. So, Chris, you are just not man enough to attract a woman.
Well, I guess I don't know what you mean by man enough to attract a woman. So that's a starting point. I don't know what that means exactly. And in terms of attracting a woman, I know I have a lot of beautiful qualities that I would share with somebody. And I think I got tripped up there. So I feel like I won that, but it was small.
Okay. Well, you made my job easier because you asked the question of yourself. So I would ask you who won, and you're saying you feel like you won small. You started with saying kind of almost just an inquiry. I guess I don't really know what you mean by man enough to attract a woman, which I actually thought was a fair point, kind of like what a ludicrous idea, but you lost steam. You said, I know that I have a lot of beautiful qualities that I would like to share with somebody. Do you want to try that again? Or would you like to do a role reversal and have me give it a shot?
Let's do a role reversal.
Okay. So you're going to be negative, Chris, and I'm going to be positive, Chris, and you're going to hit me with that.
Hey, Chris. Just wanted to let you know that you're not man enough to attract a woman.
Wow, I think that is wrong on so many fronts. First of all, as manliness goes, I'm actually like a jujitsu champion and I kick the shit out of people all the time. So I'm actually pretty ripped and pretty manly myself. But I do have some more gentle and kindly and vulnerable qualities, if that's what you're referring to. But I suspect, I've been told that lots of women really like kind of tender and vulnerable men. And so I don't really see that as a problem either. And then finally, I think the problem really isn't whether I'm manly or not manly, because I think the world has all kinds of people and all kinds of women are attracted to all kinds of men. My problem is really just listening to this bullshit that I'm telling myself that's just garbage from the past.
Right.
And who won that, you or me?
I think you did.
And was that big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
I think it was huge.
Well, that's great. What did I do? How did I win? Huge.
Well, I think the counterattack was helpful because, it's kind of a bullshit notion to be, man enough in quotes. I think that's helpful. I also liked you brought up that I do jujitsu and I kick the shit out of people. Gives me permission to give myself credit for that. So I enjoyed that. And, like the balance of having, being vulnerable and tender, right? There's the balance there. And so I think that's a big piece that I want to embrace is that, I have, there's areas where I'm very strong and assertive and I do, what can be ostensibly kind of, masculine activities like jujitsu. And I don't think that's all what it is to be a man. I think there's even deeper values of what it is to be a man and standing up for what you believe in, pursuing what you want, being able to help others, being honest and authentic and open and willing to change and to really lead one's own life. And that's something I've done really well is I've become a leader of my own life. And I'm living a life that I love and I enjoy. And if I find a woman who's inspired to come along for the ride, then that's great. And if that doesn't ever happen, I would be okay with that because I've had the last few years have been some of the most meaningful and fulfilling years of my life, and I wouldn't trade them for anything.
How much do you believe what you're saying right now?
100%.
How much do you believe I'm not man enough to attract a woman?
0.
0. And try now a role reversal with Jill again and see if you can knock it out of the park.
Yeah. So, Chris, remember, you are just not man enough to attract a woman.
That's a bunch of bullshit because what it is to be a man can't be reduced to just attracting a woman. There's deeper, more powerful qualities for what it is to be a man. And I think amongst them, it's being confident in oneself and being a leader of one's own life. And I've crafted a life that I enjoy very deeply. And it's been, the last few years have been amongst the most fulfilling and satisfying of my life. And I've been there for my family. I help where I can help. I've reached out and I support my parents where I can, and I'm a great uncle, and my nieces and nephews look up to me, and I'm a great friend, and I've done an awesome job at this school. I had a teacher came up to me and he said, on the last day of school, the counselor that I replaced said, I guess he said last year they didn't connect well with the students. He said he would ask just about all the students that met with me. He said, how is he? What's he like? Is he good? He said 100% of them said that, oh, he's good. He's good. Like they all gelled with me. That made me really happy that I'm making a difference. And I think that's whatever that is, I'm glad I have that.
That's wonderful. And so who won that, you or me?
I did.
And was that big or small?
Huge.
Huge.
Was that huge or gargantuan?
Gargantuan.
That's great. That's great.
If you were in a therapy session with me, I would make sure that you wrote that down. But I tried to take notes, and I know you have the recording. So
yeah, you can write it down later.
Exactly.
You
want that was amazing. Should we have you? Do you want to have Chris pick another?
Yeah, you want to try another one?
Yeah. Wow. She's only attracted to successful men with lots of money.
Okay, could I talk to you for a minute, Chris?
Sure.
You know that woman who rejected you?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to let you know that she's only attracted to successful women with a lot of money.
Successful men with a lot of money.
Oh, successful men. Yes. Well, maybe she's only attracted to successful women with a lot of money.
It could be. I mean, either way.
Successful men with a lot of money. Yeah.
Either way, we would likely not be a good fit if either of those were true, right? And especially if she's only attracted to successful men with lots of money, that may be the case. And if money in particular was the thing that she was attracted to, I really don't think it would be a good fit, because that's not the type of person that I want in my life. I could see some merit in being attracted to successful men if they have qualities that drove their success. And I think I have a lot of those qualities myself. And if that's the case, wonderful. I'm glad she's with people that she's attracted to. And if she's only motivated by money, that's not somebody I need in my life.
I'm feeling pretty blown out of the water, but who do you think won?
I did.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
Huge.
Huge or gigantic?
Gigantic.
Yeah, right. Let's do one more, and then let's check your moods. Actually, if you want to stay on schedule, I mean, just tell me, is there anything left of any of these negative thoughts?
Well, I wonder if he wanted to do the positive distortion one, like one of the, remember how he also wanted
yeah, let's do that one.
It's sex with a beautiful woman will complete my life, or it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
Attracted to me.
I know you beat Jill and David on those other thoughts, Chris, but there's one here that you will not be able to defeat. And so tighten your seatbelt, because here it comes. Are you ready for it?
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Okay. It's you ruined it, and now you'll never have a relationship with a beautiful woman. And don't you forget it.
Yeah, that's a thought that I had 5 years ago. Very similar thought when I had strong feelings for a woman, and it just didn't work out. And I didn't think I'd ever really, see another beautiful woman again. And guess what? There's a lot of beautiful women out there, and it happened again, and I wasn't even looking for it. So I think, I think there's probably a lot more opportunity down the road, especially if I put in an effort, and I haven't really been doing that.
Who won?
I did.
Big or small?
Big.
Big or huge?
Huge.
Huge. Awesome. Let's just re-rate your feelings. Do you have your daily mood log there?
Yeah.
Let's start out with the sadness. How sad are you feeling right now?
0.
0. Put a 0 there. How anxious are you feeling?
0.
Mm-hmm. How ashamed and guilty are you feeling?
0.
0. How inadequate and incompetent are you feeling?
0.
0. How lonely and rejected are you feeling?
0.
0. How embarrassed and humiliated are you feeling?
1.
1. How hopeless are you feeling?
0.
How defeated?
0.
How resentful and furious?
0.
0. I remember what I forgot to tell you earlier, remember I was telling you how we're all late bloomers. I was a late bloomer. My father was a late bloomer. One of my ancestors didn't get married until he was 52. I'm glad he got married, though, because I wouldn't be here if he hadn't. But I just wanted to tell you, my son is 46. And guess what's happening tomorrow?
What's that?
He's getting married in our backyard.
Oh, wow.
Gosh,
Isn't that cool?
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And he was just saying things like you were saying, like he's never going to find anybody, although his issues were slightly different. But it's quite an event. But it's just, I love you, Chris. You've been so awesome tonight. And then if you like, we can go on to a part 2, and be fun to do it with you, Jill. We can, but let's, maybe we can open it to the group so we stay kind of on schedule. And I would have 2 questions for you before we open it to the group's questions and reactions and comments, which I'm sure they're going to be pretty darn abundant. But what was the helpful ingredient for you tonight? Because you blew away all of your goals, which were very, very ambitious. What caused your feelings to change? And secondly, is this change real, or are you just saying, what we want to hear?
I think the whole process, I think the empathy piece was really important, because it helped me air out all this stuff that I've been holding on to in many ways. And if I had not, I think, given all that context, I don't think it would have been as effective, because it really helped me be seen.
Yeah. And you were awesome. And I can't remember a therapy session where there was this much genuine and moving and deep and profound emotion expressed. I mean, that was on the
that way too. It was really
10 out of 10 scale.
Yeah, that was really, you allowed us to empathize with you deeply because you shared so openly with us and such heartfelt stories and emotion.
Yeah.
And you told me offhand that you'd never say those things to your dad, like how you felt that you failed him. But what I was thinking, my agenda, which is different from yours, is I think a dad might be touched hearing those things just the way we were, but who knows? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was number one. Was there anything else?
I mean, I think that was the biggest piece. I've done, I've sort of challenged some related thoughts. I've done some mood log stuff on this before, and I think that helped, and I was maybe a little more prepared, but I really value the empathy piece, and that I felt like I had permission just to be, the pace and everything. I could just kind of share what I needed to share. That was super helpful. And then, and I can't really tell, once we started challenging the thought, it just feels like a different part of me shows up,
Yeah, right. That was so neat. That was your jujitsu self.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's neat. Well, thank you. Why don't we, and you'll have other thoughts on this, and you can share them with us on an ongoing basis. Jill.
I just wanted to ask Chris, are you feeling that you got, I know your emotions all went where we'd want them to go. So are you feeling that you got your 2 agenda items met today? And one of them was to get over your fear of rejection, to be able to be rejected and not feel so kind of wounded and shaken by it, and also to kind of rid yourself of the positive distortion, being convinced that, this one person is the be all and end all, and putting them on a pedestal. Did you feel like the work we did address both of those concerns?
I think it did. I mean, with the positive distortion, it's sort of I guess it's it's as simple as just challenging the thought when it comes up, like, oh, and that's what happened here. So I can just do that again if it happens. Even as simple as it sounds, but it's sort of like a big
enlightenment is simple.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like I got what I was looking for. It was
right. Like when you have positive distortion thoughts, like it's the end of the world if she's not attracted to me, I'll never meet another beautiful woman, or she is the one. Then yeah, you need to put those on a daily mood log and identify the positive distortions in them, and then talk back to them. Right. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Great.
One last question I have: are you willing? Now that you're in enlightenment right now, you've drifted into enlightenment. Are you willing to drift out of it on numerous occasions as you go into the actual practice in the real world, and to have some of those feelings again, and have to, kind of re-listen to portions of this and write your negative thoughts down and smash them again? Is that okay with you?
It sounds exciting. Sounds like it'll keep things
keep you hopping for a while.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Makes me feel good that sharing with others can be so connecting, and it's empowering, this vulnerability thing, because I remember at one point when I was in high school, and my parents forced me into therapy, really, and I was thinking, like, you'll have to pry this out of me with, like, my cold dead hands kind of thing, like, I am not saying anything. And that was really kind of how I was for many years until I started changing. And so to actually share all this here, it feels good to see that people respond to this in a favorable way. And it actually does feel very healing. And, I feel lighter right now. I feel happy and I feel seen. And I feel very privileged also to have Jill and David spending time working with me. This is beautiful. So thank you.
And you've certainly brought magic to us tonight, Chris. It was just a jaw-dropping evening. And I think you just have a lot of people, including me, who really love and appreciate you. And it was hopefully great from a teaching point of view, but it was also really from way over the top from an experiential point of view. And this is what I always hope for, that people will be open, and that magical deeper level will emerge. I don't know what I'm trying to say. And Jang, you lost your words too. I'm kind of losing my words, but you really brought us on an amazing adventure, journey, or experience tonight. And I'm just so proud of you and beaming and grateful to you.
Thank you so much. I don't, it really is a privilege to be able to do this in front of, well, I appreciate the whole Tuesday group for, being here, witnessing this and allowing this to happen. And I appreciate you and Jill really for doing this type of thing. It's really a gift, and I'd like to pay that forward. I'm going to use this kind of experience to continue to, do the best work I can as a therapist and as a human. And I think that's such a beautiful thing.
Cool. You can have the last word, Jill, if you like.
I'm sure. I am so grateful to you, Chris, for sharing your heart and your soul and your mind with us. It was so beautiful. It's like why we do what we do is because of people like you. And just we enjoy so tremendously the connection and the vulnerability and the incredible transformation that you brought tonight. So thank you.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you, Jill. You're
thank you, David.
Awesome. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
So, David and Chris, that was utterly amazing to listen to and to see your transformation. I am literally moved to tears by the personal work that you did, Chris, with David and Jill. And I really want to thank you for giving us permission to post it last week and this week. And really grateful that you decided to join me and David and talk about how life has been going. I think that personal work took place about a year ago. And then, diving into some of the content of what you guys worked on. So, hi, how have you been doing?
Well, I've been enjoying my life quite a bit. I wish I could say there was, huge dramatic changes in my life. But I would say I'm certainly feeling a lot more confident and excited to be alive. And I feel like there's a lot to look forward to in life.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm also just overjoyed to see you. I know that after the session you had was one of the most powerful that we've ever had, possibly the most powerful. And I know Jill, who can't join us today because she's a family person, and there's an 80th birthday party there and a bunch of family are staying, are visiting her, and but she sends her hello. But I know that she was also totally blown away by the work that you did, and we felt sad but very respectful when you didn't initially want to publish it because of its intensely personal and powerful emotional nature. Tell us a little bit about what brought you to change your mind, and let me just thank you by behalf of everyone who's had the privilege and who will have the privilege of hearing this. I think I'm going to call it raw emotion, parts 1 and 2, something like that. And I've often felt that enlightenment has an awful lot to do with seeing things as they really are and accepting ourselves as we are. And boy, you really exemplified that. You lived that with amazing courage.
Thanks, David. I'm really grateful for the work that I got to do with you and Jill, and it was kind of an unforgettable experience that I feel so happy that I've gotten to learn from you, David, and Jill, and that I also got to experience therapy from these great masters, I guess is one way to say it. So it certainly was an experience I'll treasure, and it's certainly had an enduring impact on me in the past year. And I guess when I think about what it was that led me to change, probably the first thing was a bit of a relapse, and finding myself feeling a bit of heartache. I went back and listened to the video recording and helped get myself out of a slump. On one hand, on the other hand, I also saw that I think there are still some things I was kind of holding on to. And in reviewing the recording, I think it occurred to me, a couple of things occurred to me. One, that I was maybe holding on to things, and it might benefit me to let go even a little bit more, and to kind of put this out there into the universe, so to speak. And also seeing how, what I've learned, partly in the past year, and just in engaging in things like CBT, is that my thoughts aren't always a very accurate, representation of reality or of what's going to happen. And I guess that also kind of emboldened me to give you all permission to publish this. Yeah.
That's fantastic. What would you say that you learned? If Jill was here, she'd say, "Oh, well, there's 3 points," and they'd all be really fantastic. Yeah. But I'll rely on you to help us with that. What was it about that experience? It was obviously incredibly emotional, and you were weeping and being raw and real and honest, like nothing I've ever heard before. I mean, in the way you did it, the heartfelt, open, emotional way. And what was it you were saying? Dad, Father, I let you down, or something like that?
Right. Yeah.
What were your exact words? Was that your exact words?
I don't remember the exact words. I think it was something like, "Yeah, I let my dad down."
I let my dad. I let my dad down. So teach us a little bit, Chris, about what you learned in that session and what you've learned in the time that's since that time.
Well, I think what I learned is that the biggest thing is there's something really precious about our emotions as a human being, the experience that we have, but the emotions as well. And that there's not really a need to be ashamed of how we feel. And that these emotions kind of like with the positive reframing exercise kind of see that, wow, they play a huge role in who we are and what I would say, I guess, what it means to be a human being. And I think that's really, really unique and precious. And I think that's been highlighted in the past year. And I've also learned just the power of acceptance has kind of really been, I guess, ingrained into my being as such a pivotal and crucial part of really experiencing a sense of well-being. And I noticed, like, just kind of having, during that night, just having all those emotions come up and just the intensity of them. First of all, it makes me feel so alive. It's not that, like, when I'm crying somehow it feels like bad, but it feels like, wow, this is electricity coming through me, and I know that I'm alive. And I know that on the flip side of this emotion, there's like a deep reverence for life and for being able to have this experience. And I think something similarly happened recently when I had that relapse, and I was just feeling so heartbroken and hurt, and it was just so painful to feel the sense of being so close to having something that I thought that I really wanted and needed in my life, and to only just have that just beyond my reach, just out of reach. It just felt like so painful, and at the same time, I came to see how there can be a beauty in that. And feeling such heartache and feeling that emotion again, it was like, wow, but at least I'm alive, and I know there's a passion for life hidden within all that pain and hurt. And that I think on the flip side of that, my capacity to feel so heartbroken, on the flip side of that, I think there's just a capacity to just really love my life. And I think that's part of the acceptance piece too, is extending that love and acceptance to all elements of my life, and seeing that I had this thought that with love, well, there's certain, I guess, literature out there where tragic stories are a piece of art. It's like, I think in maybe different Shakespearean stories, and I think in Japan, I think there's a history of kind of stuff like unrequited love, and seeing that a deep kind of surrender in my life could involve accepting that maybe I'll never get what I want, and maybe there's something beautiful in that. Maybe there's something beautiful in never actually getting what I want, and that's sort of one story that I can tell myself that is kind of beautiful in its own way, its own type of art. And if I can look at my life, as a work of art, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be appealing to me in a way. And I know that, I think feeling these feelings, whether it's a deeply negative feeling or apparently negative feeling like heartbreak, or a positive feeling, just that intensity of energy, it's like a sign that I'm alive. And it really inspires me to not want to waste this time that I have here on the planet, and to get up and do something with myself rather than just ruminate or, hide out in my room without, on the computer or eating junk food or something like that. It's like, I want to live my life and, get the most out of it.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, Chris. When I was a student at Amherst College, and I think Rhonda knows a little about this, Emily Dickinson lived in Amherst, and I didn't know much about her. I thought she was kind of like a greeting card poet from the 1800s with, silly rhyming poems. And then we had a lecture on it from one of the professors, and I suddenly understood her poetry and was incredibly moved. The theme of her life was the loss, never getting what I want. She went to Mount Holyoke College. That's just down the road from Amherst College, maybe 8 miles away. And as a freshman, she had to register as a Christian, a non-Christian without hope. No, a non-Christian with hope or a non-Christian without hope. And so she registered as a non-Christian without hope. And they gave her 1 semester to change her category because no one had ever registered as a non-Christian without hope. And she refused. So they kicked her out of college after her first semester freshman year, and then she lived in Amherst and spent the rest of her life, writing poetry. And she fell in love with a minister, a married minister, and he moved to California to avoid the scandal. But all of her poetry is like that, and she had this one poem that I loved, and then I wrote a poem about it myself that got published in a book about Emily Dickinson. But it's like, she always wanted to see the Western United States, the prairies, and but in her whole life she never once got out of the town of Amherst College. And she wrote, to make a prairie, it takes a clover and 1 bee. The reverie alone will do if bees are few. And, every time I think about that, brings tears to my eyes. But essentially, the message of her poetry was that you can't taste what you want until you don't get it. And that's kind of what you're saying. And she was considered a good poet, but I always thought, I think she's the greatest poet of the 1800s, maybe, or the greatest American poet. And I see now she's kind of being discovered, and they have created a museum for her. I think out of her old house. They let me in there, the people who are now living there, and they let me look around, and we used to go and visit her grave. But now they're saying that people are viewing her as the greatest poet in the world, the greatest poet of all time. And I can really kind of see and experience that. And what you're saying is the same thing, and brings tears to my eyes.
I love what you're sharing, David. And I remember I had I'm not very well versed in poetry, but there was these 2 anthologies, and maybe it was Stephen Mitchell, I don't know who wrote them, but one was The Enlightened Mind and one was The Enlightened Heart. And The Enlightened Heart was a book of poetry by mostly, there's a lot of kind of mystics, I suppose, religious mystics, like Hafez and Rumi. But there was also, I think Emily Dickinson was mentioned in it.
Oh, really?
And I think what I remember was when she was describing her process of engaging in poetry, she spoke about, it was almost as if it was just kind of coming through her. And I think it felt like she was writing with her as if she didn't have a head or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but what I took from it was like this transcendent kind of process, something bigger than herself.
Yeah.
And something I've been thinking about, recently is, how much life is bigger than any of us, this thing of life that's existed prior to my birth and will exist prior to my death, and this concept of like surrender and acceptance and like seeing what life wants from me. And I think that comes back to kind of what, I don't know what the future holds, but in a way, this impulse, I think, to, reconnect with the both of you and to put the podcast out there is sort of, it's sort of a way of me, life kind of working through me and pulling out of me something that maybe will benefit life more than I would benefit from not having it go out there, if that makes
from it being hidden.
Right.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to talk to you about, Chris, and I wasn't there when you did the personal work, so I read the transcript. We put the audio in this app or the platform called Descript, and it turns the audio into a script. So then I read everything, and it's so different reading it than seeing it in person. And when I was reading the script between you, David, and Jill, my experience of having worked at a rape treatment center for 4 years and working with sex offenders for close to 10 years, and I sexual abuse is a big part of my career. People who've experienced that. Life. And when I read this experience that you had when you were in high school, I read that as you were too intoxicated to give full consent to your friend, even though he was really your close friend. And after that, your behavior really changed. You started drinking more, and you described how your behavior toward your brother and your family changed, and your schoolwork was affected. And you were just so open about your experiences. And I appreciate that so much, because lots of times we hear women talking about sexual abuse and the experience. And I'm not even sure if you consider it sexual abuse, which we can talk about that too. But I just want you to know how much I appreciated that from a male perspective, that you're talking about your experience. And I looked at that moment as a pivotal point in your life, and I wonder, that's how you looked at it too?
Yeah, when it happened, obviously I struggled with making any sense of it, and then thought it was something I could kind of just bury and then forget about. And obviously that didn't happen. And, in the ensuing years, I've seen it as a very pivotal part of my life and who I've come to be. And I think there's a saying that suffering is the first grace or something like that. And I think that was, for me, one of the moments in my life where I really I had a really privileged childhood, and to experience, some suffering where I started to question myself and what life is about, as painful as it could be. I think it did, initiate a deeper process of me, coming to, discover who I am and what life is about. And I think that's a process that's continuing to unfold just right now on this podcast. Mm-hmm. So I would say, it not the most important moment in my life, but certainly deeply impactful moment.
Yeah, you're right. We have so many of those moments. And as David talks about so often, it's not just the event or the moments in our lives that it's how we look at them and think about them creates how we feel about them. And looking at different things in various ways, looking at it as a 17-year-old, looking at a 28-year-old, looking at it as the man you are today. I'm sure it evolves.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And to be at a place like, I think another part of what was powerful for me about the personal work is that that's something that I've only disclosed to a few people. Like I remember maybe my first sponsor, a therapist I had in high school, and it's something I pretty tight-lipped about. But then to do this work in front of 30 some 40, I don't know how many people were on the call, but there is, I think it's exposure in a sense, and there's something that kind of happens to the brain when I can unearth this something from within myself that I've felt so much shame about. And then it's like, once that's sort of exposed to the light, there's like a shift or a change, and it takes some of the power out of
it's freeing.
Right. Yeah.
And I know I did personal work with David in the Tuesday group once, and he, I don't want to put David on a pedestal, but at some moment in the personal, we were talking about my relationship with my brother, actually, and I was in a conflict with him, and I failed at the double standard technique. On the double standard technique, when you talk to your friend and you're trying to talk to your friend with compassion, and I was not talking to my friend with compassion, and someone in the group was like, "Is that really how you would talk to a friend?" And I was like, "Well, about this, yes, yep." And it was at the moment, I just remember feeling so flush and heated. My face was hot, and I'm sure I turned beet red. But since that moment of personal work with David, I felt so much freer. And I wondered, too, if that's what you felt. You shared it first with a group of 30 people. Now you're sharing it with the tens of thousands or 100,000 people that are listening to this podcast. And I wonder, what is your relationship to the feeling of shame? I know you're smiling.
Yeah. I mean, because I certainly, feel better about it. But now that you say 100,000 people, maybe I'm.
Don't worry, Chris. Our numbers have been going down. We found out they were calculating them incorrectly, so it'll only be probably like 6,000 on each of the days, and then over time that'll build to about 20,000 per episode. So,
all right. Good to know.
Okay, not 100,000, only 20,000.
So relationship, I mean, shame still pops its head, it still, shows itself in my life from time to time, but
what shows itself?
Shame.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, right. But I guess, what is my relationship? Again, I guess there's a sense that it can be overcome, right? Like, I think with that one incident, like you're saying, Rhonda, it's like, oh, wow, there's something where, by bringing it up to the light, there's a change that happens with my relationship with that specific incident. And, I mean, there's still, like with this podcast, there's people that I wouldn't want to direct to the podcast. I'm happy to put it out there, but I'm also kind of guarded about it to a certain degree, and I don't know if that's
sure
warranted or not, but I certainly still feel shame, although I think I have a healthier relationship with it, just like with anxiety, knowing that it's not it's not a condition that can't be overcome. Like it's something that I can work through, and has a role. It does something. It's not necessarily the enemy. And I think that's helpful to know.
Jill always has a very simple thing to say about shame, and it's that shame requires secrecy. And that once you open it up, then the shame diminishes and disappears. But at the same time, even once we've experienced enlightenment, we can't stay there all the time, sadly. And the negative thoughts come creeping back in. And that was so neat that you then turned to listening to the video or the audio or watching the video or however you got the recording. Would you recommend that to other people to if you have a recording of a therapy session that transformed your life? Do you think there's juice in owning that recording and listening to it whenever you fall out of enlightenment and get into a relapse?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value to it. That was certainly helpful. And just learning the tools, is helpful. And like what I've found is like having those moments when, we're doing the externalization of voices and you're crushing all the thoughts and you have like, there's a felt sense of what it is like to be in that space, I think sometimes that enlightened space will say,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh, this feels good. Like I know, it's knowing that sense. It's like, oh, I can get back there. How do I get back there? And kind of, and knowing how like, oh, it's my thoughts that are doing this, but it's not just my thoughts. Like it feels when I'm in there, it's like I feel like I'm not just having the thoughts, but it's like my entire body is believing the thought. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel more confident. So it's like almost like an energetic shift that, like I can't just, lightly read the thing. I have to actually like almost take on the role and be that confidence, be that be in that place.
Shame and anxiety and depression and feelings of inadequacy, I've thought more and more in recent years, is very much a state of hypnosis, and you experience it with your whole body, your way your body feels. You believe the thoughts with all of your heart. Your emotions seem to confirm everything. You feel worthless. You must be worthless, and like that. And then when you get out of it, it's like waking up from a hypnotic trance and maybe seeing the Grand Canyon for the first time and seeing reality for the first time. And things appear radically different. And then what's happening there is you're simply accepting yourself instead of beating up on yourself. And the moment you accept yourself, which sounds like getting stuck, everything changes the moment you accept yourself. That's a paradox. And it just sounds like a lot of words, but it's a total body transformation that occurs. Shut up, David.
No, it's so true.
Elderly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you just said that, Chris. You felt it within your whole body, and that's what you're talking about too.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any remaining negative thoughts at this moment that we can do a externalization of voices tune up?
I mean, in this moment, I'm feeling pretty good.
Oh, great. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I'm enjoying, the conversation. And I think something I've appreciated, David, is in your teaching, is learning how there's a like spirituality and therapy. Like I feel like it's an arbitrary distinction.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so like, we talk about labeling as a distortion, but it's like the mind is always labeling, and like it's misleading, and it's preventing us from recognizing the beauty of being alive and of what's happening right here. And I feel like the tools that we learn in Team CBT and having those moments where people, have that epiphany, it is like, oh yeah, like there's something kind of just wondrous about.
Yeah, something magical. Things turn into their opposite. So I have a question for you, and you are kind of more of a mystic now. You're a teacher, spiritual teacher. But then teach us this. You showed us your worst, most shameful moments. You were a teenager and you were getting arrested and you were stealing alcohol and getting drunk and calling people in the middle of the night and having all kinds of embarrassing and horrible conversations. And you were sobbing when you were saying those things that you'd been hiding from people, because this is your worst thing about you that you were desperately trying to hide. And now explain to me, why is that actually the most beautiful thing about you? Why is that your most beautiful gift to the universe and to the people who are listening to this podcast?
I would say that, as I kind of mentioned earlier, that phrase that suffering is the first grace, and that when we see that, there's actually this is not something I have to resist right now. And in fact, if I give up the resistance to my suffering, I can start to look at, what it's telling me, what it's all about. And I think all that suffering showed me how much I cared about life and how much I valued life. And I think in that moment, I wasn't even clear to what degree that was true. In fact, I may have told you that I hated life, but having worked through that, what I've seen is that, life is absolutely worth living. It's a beautiful thing. And I don't think I would have gotten to that without having experienced all this intense suffering. And it continues to happen. And that's one of the things that I find invigorating is that, wow, like experiencing all this pain and suffering. And if I can do it without, holding on to it, it sort of enlivens me. It fills me with an energy, and then it passes through, and then it feels like I have more room for the good stuff. I have more room for even more joy and happiness. And it's almost like, I don't know, going to the gym or something and getting, stronger, that you're, feeling all this pain, but then once it's over, it's like, oh, I have even more room for joy and happiness. And that's a beautiful thing. It's like, you're creating, I guess the phrase is like anti-fragility. You're becoming and developing a more robust ability to enjoy and savor life, because I don't think I'd be able to, if I had just a quote unquote good life without any problems or suffering. I think it would just be very bland, and I think I would just be so unaware of how beautiful life could be. And I think sometimes suffering or pain can wake me up to that, especially when I can work through it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And is this podcast your gift of love to the people listening? That the gift that in your darkest moment, and that was a very dark moment, that great life can emerge, hope can emerge, transformation can emerge. Yeah. It just sounds dopey what I'm saying, but is that also not only is that also an act of love for others who may hear this, who may be suffering?
Yeah, I think it is. I hadn't really thought about, I guess, that so deeply. But when it's like I can't really separate myself from life. I'm kind of an inseparable part of life itself. So I'm life and you're life, and life exists. And so in that way, there's like kind of a unity, and if I can help myself, I'm helping life, I'm helping others. And so, and I think that reminds me of another thing I've sort of learned is how much my own attachment and grasping causes so much of this suffering, and how kind of letting go of that and acceptance and surrender and all these things really make space for something bigger than myself to come through. And I can feel kind of more joy and happiness. And there's two quotes, I guess, that kind of inspire me. And one is from Thich Nhat Hanh, he passed away, I think, and he was a Vietnamese Zen teacher. But he said, love in such a way that the person you love feels free. And the other quote is by another teacher named Adi Da, and it's, love does not fail you when you are apparently or rejected, betrayed, and apparently not loved. Love fails you when you reject, betray, and do not love. And what I like about those quotes is that it speaks to, love is a great thing for the person who's experiencing the love. And it's something that we do and kind of can give to others without attachment, without expectation. And that in itself is like a powerful thing. Because I noticed the thing that hurts for me is when I feel like, oh, this person is rejecting me, and like, oh, I'll never have love. And I'm closing off to, an opportunity. But if I can, let go of that and wish them well and love in a way that they feel free to be who they are. I'm kind of opening myself up to something bigger, I guess.
Yeah. You're saying love is something we do, comes from within. It's not something we get from somebody else. That's
right.
Important.
Exactly. And I guess I've been chasing it for so much of my life. And I think that's one of the issues, right?
Yeah. Well, we love you, Chris, and appreciate you so much. And I'm just incredibly grateful to see you again, to get caught up, to hear your words of wisdom and spirituality and enlightenment. But that comes from something raw and real and fantastic. And you've taken that memory of your awfulest time, and by simply sharing it and accepting it, it's morphed into something of incredible beauty that might be touching people right now. Maybe some younger person who's feeling hopeless or feeling like ending his or her life, or feeling like I'm no good, and this is why I'm no good. When we all have all these flaws and faults, and we're pretty good at beating up on ourselves. And because I don't even know what I'm saying, but Rhonda will summarize it.
Well, I just feel so much love in my heart for you, Chris. I think that you have given us a great lesson and a great teaching today and in this podcast. And I agree with what David said. I think there are a lot of people that could listen to these podcasts, last week's and this week's, and listen to what you're saying today and be in a state of hopelessness because maybe they've experienced some type of abuse or an addiction or troubles with the law or something and feel like, oh, life isn't worth living. And listening to what you've said, you're just teaching a whole different perspective that suffering can wake people up to a robust ability to save a life. And I don't know, that's so powerful and meaningful. And my heart is just full of love for you and appreciation.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, David. It goes both ways. I love being part of this community and very grateful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're all so lucky.
Here we are. Okay, well, maybe that's our conclusion for this podcast.
Yeah, and write to us. Tell us what you think.
Great.
But only if it's positive.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that a lot of women are going to be listening to this podcast and thinking, I want to meet that guy.
I think so too. Absolutely.
Fingers crossed.
Give us your contact information to put in the show notes.
Right. No. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Because we're a matchmaking service too.
Sure. Cool. If you want to make a match, I'd love that.
Okay, cool. Okay, well, thank you again.
Okay, ladies, this is your chance. Don't wait. You may be too late.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Barovsky, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.